Hey, good. What's up? Zerilath is here. Let's get on with it. All right. So since the last show, I finally finished the last chapter of Dune. So this book is now going to continue. When I'm done with this book, I'm going to take another break, and then I'm going to read, I think, Messiah's the next book in the Dune series. I'm just going through the first three, in my off time, right? And then I'll be, after those three, I have to buy the last three books in the series. Because as I understand, all the Frank stuff is great. All the stuff with his son is kind of meh. But anyway, welcome to the show. Let me double check audio.
Right, all the stuff with his son is kind of...
Alright, that's kind of fine, but actually, I could use some more bass.
Right, all the stuff with his son is kind of...
Alright, that's kind of fine, but actually, I could use some more bass.
Right, all the stuff with...
Okay, hold on a minute. I'm letting this thing feedback loop. I'm just realizing that for some reason the bass knob on my channel is just all the way down. So I just turned it up to about a medium degree. Just realizing that for some reason the bass knob. Alright, that's much better. And I suppose I'll turn that a pinch. Alright. That I suppose will be fine. I think. One second. I'm gonna do that and that. Okay. Alright, one more mic check over here. Sorry. At a pinch. Alright. That I suppose will be fine. Alright, we're just gonna go with this. How's it going, everybody? Let's get on with it. So, Saul Alinsky, we're going to get into chapter 1. He starts with a Bible quote, actually. So, I'll show you right here. So, he kicks off with Job 7:1. And, hold on a sec. Let me square things off over here. There we go. I can do much better than that. Hold on. Let's blow this up again. Then center it. There. Okay. So, he quotes here, "The life of man upon earth is a warfare." Job 7:1. So, let's actually take a look at what this actually says. So, bear with me while I... that. Foxes, Streamlabs, Brave, where is it? ISA, there it is. Okay, so let me bring this up top, just above Foxit. There we go. Alright, this is my interlinear scripture analyzer. This right here is going to tell you what you need to know. That's going to cover me up partially. All right, so Job 7:1 says, this is called the concordant literal version of the Bible. That is the baseline for this prime English translation of the Hebrew. Has not a mortal, a hard enlistment on the earth, and his days, are they not like the days of a hireling? Okay, so he omitted the part out in the verse that it's not just his days are like a war, but his days are like, slavery, one could say. He probably could have kept that in, considering how deep he's stretching for purpose here. Let's take a look at the context real quick. So, chapter 6, let's go back. Okay, how, direct me and I shall... All right. Just let me take a quick look. Because I don't want to read too much. Myself and all prosperity has been driven away from me. Right, okay, so Job is going through the motions of his losses thus far, right? You know, so he's in the midst of his bullshit. And so towards the end over here, indeed have I said, grant something to me, or pay a bribe from your fortune in my behalf, or deliver me forth from the hand of a foe, or you shall ransom me from the hand of terrifiers. Direct me, and I shall keep silent, and where I have erred, make me understand. How savory are words of uprightness, yet how can correction from you be correcting? Are you designing to correct with declarations, yet treat as wind the words of a desperate man? Indeed, you would cast lots for the orphan, and you would barter over your associate. Yet now be kindly disposed. Face me, I shall assuredly not lie to your face. Relent, I pray. Let it not become iniquity, and relent further, my righteousness is at stake in it. In their iniquity on my tongue, is there iniquity on my tongue, or does not my palate understand woes? Right? The word for iniquity chosen is called uli in the Hebrew. Give me the lexicon. Okay, so ule is evel. Is there evel or level? Ovel. And feminine lav lo, avla, or ola, or ola, like ola, from moral, evil. So iniquity. There's probably going to be translations that say, is there evil on my tongue? Do I speak lies? Do I speak harm? Right? Do I say hurtful words? I think in the Old Norse prose, well, in poetic prose, whether it's on the prose or the Poetic Edda, we kind of say things like baleful staves, as in like magical rune staves. This manner of speaking evil with your Galder, right? So then it goes into 7, where he's now, I guess, assessing that situation, right? So it's kind of like, okay, so it's the Jobian, I got screwed over. Here's the situation of my screw over, and now here's my situation, right? So it goes to this, and here's how it reads backwards in the Hebrew. Not that I'm reading it backwards, but I'm reading it right to left in the Hebrew. You can see that in the screen below. Not enlistment to mortal on earth, and as the days of the hired one, days of him. So the sentence is, it's almost like one sentence here as opposed to two. It's like, so it goes like, not, like as a question, not enlistment to mortals on the earth as the days of the hired ones and the days of him. Like this is the Hebrew that they had to work with, right? Like just and they had to take that, and that almost doesn't even sound like a real freaking like grammar, right? Not enlistment to mortal on earth. Like it goes on. Like on for the ol and then on for the oli. So that doesn't help, right? But if those are the words, right? So like, why is this on and this on? So like, if I go lexicon here, Property, the same as any, used in preposition in the singular or plural, the prefix above or over or against. And then, okay, great. So then what is this one? Proper say. Okay, they literally see. They gave them the same definition. Ol and ol. See, this is my point, right? Like, I think this probably is tied to the broken Hebrew fact, right? The fact that the Hebrew language is at best 10,000 words. And that's probably what's causing a little bit of issue here. So, because then it goes on to verse 2, like a slave who is gasping after shade, and like a hireling who is expecting his wages. So am I allotted months of futility for myself, and nights of misery have they assigned to me. Right? So this is kind of like this is the woes of the working from a position of debt. Right? Okay, so to be honest with you, Saul's context here is quite apropos. So that's all I wanted to do, and let's not waste a second more on Job. And let's get into the actual book. What follows is for those who want to change the world from what it is to what they believe it should be. The Prince was written by Machiavelli for the haves on how to hold power. Rules for Radicals is written for the have-nots on how to take it away. Right? Now, the first flaw in his thinking, I will tell you, is to accept the title of have-not. It's a state of mind, is the first thing. Very apropos that he quotes Job. He perhaps is missing the point, which makes this an opportunity. In this book, we are concerned with how to create mass organizations to seize power and give it to the people, to realize the democratic dream of equality, justice, peace, cooperation, equal and full opportunities for education, full and useful employment, health, and the creation of those circumstances in which man can have the chance to live by values that give meaning to life. Now, I don't know about the circumstances of human beings in Saul's time, but America has always had those things available to anyone. The people that are falling off the wayside are the people that they aren't acknowledging are not taking personal responsibility. And the idea is that personal responsibility can be legislated away to the state. So you can just get those things, right? It's communism, right? Or maybe it's socialism. It's like you're telling the state to ordain a job for a person. He wrote this when everybody looked at the matter of DEI-style qualification practices were in effect to a different degree, right? So some of these things are here. Were these things perhaps done by such, right? But you see, the power is that, like, it's the question of, because my thing that always makes me mad at the elites, because I don't like taking these positions, it sounds like I'm apologizing for evil. Like, I probably sound like that more often than not, and this is a kind of a big problem with conservative and Republican rhetoric, right? Is that it ends up being, the corporate apologist, the greed apologist, the whatever apologist, right? And, you got all sorts of people that, like, you have a hard enough time explaining yourself in plain English, and somebody wants to like invert your plain English. And so you end up not giving a fuck and giving up on even the pretense. You know, that's where Trump is now. He's given up on pretense. He's done with pretense. He's done with you know, with like, look, Donald Trump is the pillar of the Republican Party, right? The Republican Party's platform is whatever comes out of the goddamn president's mouth. So it's anybody who identifies with the Republican Party platform is always feeling under like attack, and not just political rhetoric attack. We're talking about, you know, violence that has been going on for quite a hot minute. Unsafe working spaces, unsafe public events, and so on and so forth for quite a hot minute. That's part of the reason why the left hated Charlie Kirk, right? Is because in the fight for the left to have their say amongst the straights in their time, it took the right such a long time to actually care about fucking young people properly, like secular young people. Secular doesn't mean atheist or anti-God, right? It just means of no particular proclivity, right? We have a secular government because our First Amendment is institutionalized secularism, because we shall pass no law respecting an establishment of religion, right? But you can also, but also that means that if a law is disrespecting a religion, it cannot stand, right? And so you have to, on principle, say that all sorts of different kinds of people can speak, right? And it's one thing to be like a mainline or Republican versus like a fringe Republican. Charlie Kirk was on the fringes, right? The right had to shift and sway because Charlie Kirk was right about the direction that was going to be successful for conservative values, right? And so you create this space for the left, and you don't even give the right a try anymore because it sounds too much like the neocons that honestly, deservedly, should not be in our civil discourse because they are far crueler, far more bigoted. You know, they can't debate, much like how a lot of the leading leftists can't debate today because they're the neoliberals. They're all Fabian socialists, and they're still Fabian socialists amongst the new liberals and conservatives too, especially because the system eventually turns you just into one because it's a comfortable snakeskin based on just that in-between field every politician ends up finding themselves in by the merit of how our civics works today. And the question of whether you can be a certain kind of anarchist as an elected official. Which you actually can't, but you can give anarchy a bad name by ruining rational forms of organizing principles that that the systems that we entrust to the state, because they're for the larger tribe's benefit, if you will. Anyway, let's keep going. I'm not even 2 paragraphs into this bitch, and I've been rambling for half an hour. We are talking about a mass power organization which will change the world into a place where all men and women walk erect. Right. In the spirit of the credo of the Spanish Civil War, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. This means revolution. Okay, so the Spanish Civil War, do your history, folks. I'm going to assume that he is, siding, like we all get it. This is what we signed up for, to read this book is like this opinion that all this stuff is, all this way the world is set is wrong. The significant changes in history have been made by revolutions. There are people who say that it is not revolution, but evolution that brings about change. But evolution is simply the term used by non-participants to denote a particular sequence of revolutions as they synthesized into a specific major social change. In this book, I propose certain general observations, propositions, and concepts of the mechanics of mass movements and the various stages of the cycles of action and reaction in revolution. So so he's going to talk about the Hegelian dialectic. Is he going to bring wisdom to his radicals about how they can also be manipulated by their own revolution, as we have seen? Which is also in part and parcel part of the problem of you're trying to run this revolution with very ill-informed, ill-educated persons who also are not talented, industrious, healthy, postured, have courage and integrity, right? They're just they're living within a certain value set that kind of feels like they have the bits and pieces of what I just said that they want, especially if it sounds good in their group of friends and such, right? Everything that just Saul, you need a certain kind of people to make all this shit work properly. Anyway, this book will not contain any panacea or dogma. I detest and fear dogma. I know that all revolutions must have ideologies to spur them on, that in the heat of conflict, these ideologies tend to be smelted into rigid dogmas, claiming exclusive possession of the truth and the keys to paradise is tragic. Dogma is the enemy of human freedom. Dogma must be watched for and apprehended at every turn and twist of the revolutionary movement. That I actually do agree with. I actually do agree with that, right? And you have to ask yourself, is the standards that you hold dogmatic, right? Because a conservative type person is going to be more dogmatic. If you are leaning conservative, like I feel to do in the new definition of a conservative lent person is. Granted, I've been saying that since beforehand because I was latching classical liberal values to libertarian Republican values, which is what everybody was fucking doing in 2012. The Ron Paul movement is a quintessential foundation of the Trump movement. Quintessential. The human spirit glows from that small inner light of doubt, whether we are right, while those who believe with complete certainty that they possess the right are dark inside and darken the world outside with cruelty, pain, and injustice. Those who enshrine the poor or have-nots are as guilty as other dogmatists and just as dangerous. To diminish the danger that ideology will deteriorate into dogma and to protect the free, open, questing, and creative mind of man, as well as to allow for change, no ideology should be more specific than that of America's founding fathers. For the general welfare. Let's look at that real quick. That's a real thing that's in, I think, the Constitution, and always used as a constitutional argument for the, quote, welfare state because of how we have defined welfare. So, 1 second. Alright. I'm going to see if I can get what looks like a factually correct contextual answer from ChatGPT real quick. So, what? Come on. Oh my god. First off, turn that off. Stop. My keyboard, I think my battery is dying on my keyboard, so it doesn't want to act right. What? I might have to do this on my phone. What is the... Oh my god. Okay, I'm going to do this on my phone. Alright, going on my phone. Oh, wait, if I'm not logged in, it's not going to give me a good answer. I got to log in. This will be worth it. This will be worth it. This is important. This matters. Hurry up. Hurry up! Okay, there we go. Let's go away. Alright. What is the definition of welfare in America in 1790? Alright, so ChatGPT wants to say, 1790, the word welfare did not yet mean government aid programs like it does today. Instead, it carried its older, broader meaning, general well-being, prosperity, or happiness of the people, often used in political and legal writing to mean the public good or general welfare. You see this in foundational documents of the Constitution, 1787, mentioned to promote the general welfare in both the preamble and Article 1, Section 8, powers the Congress for the founders. Welfare meant the common prosperity and security of the nation as a whole, not individual financial assistance. Sorry, Saul, you're losing real hard here. In 1790, there were almost no federal welfare programs as we think of them today. Social support for the poor or needy was handled mostly by local governments like towns and counties, churches, and private charities. So in 1790, welfare, the collective well-being of the people, the public good, not direct payments or aid. Would you like to pull up examples, yada, yada, yada? Okay, so ChatGPT has confirmed. I remember that statement as being true as I learned it. I can accept that answer from ChatGPT today. With that, we are going to take the small break during this half hour. So, what other kind of radical leftist awesome music do I want to play for you? Let's see. I already did stuff like that. Let's do... Did I already do that last time? No, I did that. Alright, fine. No, I did play them. I want to play a different band. I'm trying to play different bands with each thing. I like to find bands that I've heard of but aren't as familiar as I'd like to be with them. I don't want to play dumb shit like American Idiots on here by Green Day, and like Green Day's too big to be punk. Sorry. Sorry, it's just like, your stadiums, all the money, all the whatever. I mean, are you did Green Day make a Green Day communist society to be that? Like, did any of these guys do? That's the other thing, right? Ooh, the Casualties. I like the Casualties. The Casualties they're almost thrash metal. These guys are fucking awesome. We're gonna play 1312.
Sucking 12, ACAB! 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 You see no power, power corrupts. You see no people beating by the cops. Some is already me. We've had enough. Let's get together. Let's show them what's up. Es para la gente, para todo el mundo. Sale de corto, queremos ser libres.
There we go. Oh, that was good shit. Never heard that song before. Fucking loved it. Fucking loved it. Casualties. They're one of the heaviest punk bands that I know. That's amongst known bands. I'm sure, there's a lot of fucking heavier bands, and, especially when you're crossing into hardcore punk. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, I kind of consider them almost thrash punk. But anyway. Alright, all simple, all good. Whoops, there we go. This guy. Alright. Niels Bohr, the great atomic physicist, admirably stated the civilized position on dogmatism. Every sentence I utter must be understood not as an affirmation, but as a question. I will argue that man's hopes lie in the acceptance of the great law of change, that a general understanding of the principles of change will provide clues for rational action and an awareness of the realistic relationship between means and ends and how each determines the other. Means and ends. If you've been listening to my drive streams, many of my criticisms of people's attitudes about the speed or the order of the direction towards lawful anarchy is going is within this context of means to an end, right? I would like to live in a world where there were no publicly traded corporations that are above the law. I'd like to live in a world where we're such a high trust community that there's no need for cops because every man is known and trusted and capable in his own right. But we do not live in that world. and we can scare each other, right? So, you can't be a bitch and relent to, your community's fears about the law-abiding, civil, free man who is a good moral individual, high-trust person, having a general fear of of how they may execute their right to self-defense, armed, right? You have to be able to say that in the right eloquent terms, defend that position. I had to do that today with a very, very serious person over a very, very local, very, very close to home situation. Anyway, I hope that these pages will contribute to the education of the radicals of today and to the conversation of hot, emotional, impulsive passions that are impotent and frustrating to actions that will be calculated, purposeful, and effective. An example of the political insensity of many of today's so-called radicals and the lost opportunities is found in this account of an episode during the trial of the Chicago 7. Okay. Here, shouldn't have closed ChatGPT is what I shouldn't have done. Oops. Shut up. Trying to not do too many damn things with my phone. All right, not now. Okay, there we go. All right. Oops. Allow. Yeah. Okay. Whoops. Sorry. Tell me about the trial of the Chicago 7. Let me see, that might be close enough. All right, it was one of the most famous political trials in U.S. history, taking place September of 69 to February 70. It involved a group of anti-Vietnam War activists accused of conspiring to incite riots during the 68 Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Ah, yes, the 68 convention. I believe that was a huge disaster for the Democrat Party that year. It was a big reason why Nixon won. Let's see. Background, defendants, the trial itself, the legacy. It's not too long of a splurge there, but that's good enough. Over the weekend, some 150 lawyers from all parts of the country had gathered in Chicago to picket the federal building in protest against Judge Hoffman's arrest of the 4 lawyers. This delegation, which was supported by 13 members of the faculty of the Harvard Law School, and which included a number of other professors as well, submitted a brief as friend of the court, which called Judge Hoffman's actions a travesty of justice. I used to call myself travesty. There's a reason why I didn't. Hold on. Okay, so wait. The defendants. Okay, so there were 4 lawyers. So I'm looking at the defendants here. Abby Hoffman, Yippie, Youth International Party co-founder. Jerry Rubin, Yippie leader. Tom Hayden, Student for a Democratic Society founder, SDS. Rennie Davis, an SDS organizer. David Dellinger, longtime pacifist. John Freunds, chemist and activist. Chemist, interesting. Lee Weiner, graduate student activist, and Bobby Seale, co-founder of the Black Panther Party. So I'm going to assume the lawyers must have been some of these political group founders. That would make sense to me. Anyway. Which threatens to destroy the confidence of the American people in the entire judicial process. By 10 o'clock, the angry lawyers had begun to march around the federal building, where they were joined by hundreds of student radicals, several Black Panthers, and 100 or more blue-helmeted Chicago police. Ah, yes, the good old blue helmets of the back in the day. Shortly before noon, about 40 of the picketing lawyers carried their signs into the lobby of the federal building. Oh, and by the way, I would petition, because, like I said, I'd like to live in a copless world, but could we live in a blue cop world instead of a tactical black cop world? How about that? But then again, we have to go back to a high-trust society, or at least a higher-trust society, so that way boys in blue can show up in actual blue. Instead of scaring the bejesus of us looking like they're in the fucking IDF. But anyway, hey, what's up, DN? Shortly before noon, about 40 of the picketing lawyers carried their signs into the lobby of the federal building, despite the notice posted on the glass wall beside the entrance and signed by Judge Campbell forbidding such demonstrations within the building. Hardly had the lawyers entered, however, then Judge Campbell himself descended to the lobby dressed in his black robes and accompanied by a marshal, a stenographer, and his court clerk, surrounded by the angry lawyers who were themselves encircled by a ring of police and federal marshals. The judge proceeded to hold court then and there. He announced that unless the pickets withdrew immediately, he would charge them with contempt. This time, he warned, there could be no question that their contempt would occur in the presence of the court and would thus be subject to summary punishment. Yeah, I believe a judge can make anywhere a court as long as he's got those elements. He can establish court, right? Which is why it's one of the strategies if you know your shit in parse, syntax, grammar in court. I wish I did. I wish I could just fucking talk like that. And I wish I knew the first things to do for myself to give me the standing before I even go in there. But point is that you can at some point, if your argument with the judge gets the judge to call a short recess, where anything where she has to leave the courthouse outside of some sort of regular procedure. I can't remember. The point is she leaves the courthouse, then you can invoke the Admiralty law that she has abandoned ship. Right? That the captain has abandoned ship because the judge sits as captain. It's this whole thing with how the legal system works. I really hated trying to learn that shit. I really fucking hated it. It hurt my soul. I said, my soul wants to spend no time with this. I hate this. I hate this beyond all compare. And, yeah. But anyway, no sooner had he made this announcement, however, than a voice from the throng shouted, "Fuck you, Campbell!" After a moment of tense silence, followed by a cheer from the crowd and a noticeable stiffening among the police. Judge Campbell himself withdrew. Then the lawyers, too, left the lobby and rejoined the pickets on the sidewalk. Jason Epstein, The Great Conspiracy Trial, Random House, 1970. The picketing lawyer threw away a beautiful opportunity to create a nationwide issue. Offhand, there would seem to have been two choices, either of which would have forced the judge's hand and kept the issue going. One of the lawyers could have stepped up to the judge after the voice said, "Fuck you, Campbell," said that the lawyers there did not support personal obscenities. But they were not leaving, or all the lawyers together could have chorused with one voice, "Fuck you, Campbell." They did neither. Instead, they let the initiative pass from them to the judge and achieved nothing. Radicals must be resilient, adaptable to shifting political circumstances, and sensitive enough to the process of action and reaction to avoid being trapped by their own tactics and forced to travel a road not of their choosing. Right, like, this all actually makes good sense. He's at the very least pointing out this is an example of something that definitely had no effect of any sort. I learned some law. I took the DWP to court 4 times. 3 times I won at court. The 4th they caved the day before. Ha! All by myself after my solicitor got thrown out of court. The judge allowed me to self-representation. Okay, all right. Yeah, it's quite a thing to stand there and have the audacity to tell a court that you have the competency to represent yourself. I went through a whole lot of pain failing at representing myself. And you guys that do that, I fucking love you because it's too much. It's just too much for me. Brings a tear to my eye. But I can't fucking commit to using that mind that way. I would need somebody fucking guiding every inch of my hand, my voice, my mind through the motions of the beginning, because this is serious shit, right? I need serious, like, in-person counsel that's there for me and will at least be present as a witness in the court to coach me on how I fucked up, because they won't be able to help me, but they can be fucking present. Public. It's all public. Traffic tickets and bullshit. Whew, it took 3 years. Yeah, it took 3 years, right? Were you doing alternative law practices, or were you just doing independent practice of regular law? Because the work of Judge David Wynn Miller, I think was his name, with Parse Syntax Grammar is one of the absolute keys that I know of. One of the most, I would have to fucking spend a whole lot of time and, oh God, it sucks. It fucking sucks. I know my rights. I wouldn't know how to fucking process my rights in court is the problem. Which is kind of makes knowing your rights almost completely fucking useless. Except in spirit. But anyway, alright. In short, radicals must have a degree of control over the flow of events. Here I propose to present an arrangement of certain facts and general concepts of change, a step toward a science of revolution. Okay, science of revolution. That's an interesting way to put it. This guy thinks he can contribute to science now. Look at him. Political science, sure. All societies discourage and penalize ideas and writings that threaten the ruling status quo. It is understandable, therefore, that the literature of a have society is a veritable desert whenever we look for writings on social change. Right? Like the power in which Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA was doing what it was doing on college campuses, it had unprecedented, there was no precedented competition for it. Nobody on the left was an equivalency. Right? And the ones that might be considered some sort of equivalency, usually they're not very good at it, right? Like, because of certain very overt, strong moral rhetoric within their positions, informed by their faith, which is a serious thing because of how real their faith can be to them and the kind of Christian of faith we are talking about. That it feels like religious oppression. It feels like people that betrayed Jesus favoring, the wealthy, the money changers. And there's truth. There is truth to that. Right? It depends. Like, one has to sit there, and that would be like the first challenge to any, Christian talking about helping people become incredibly wealthy, as a priority over that, right? And it's just like, as Christians, you shouldn't be interested in making people wealthy at all. You should be doing, right? And you would have to explain why no that not be the case, right? And Christians have to deal with that, because if they're projecting certain attitudes, you can't project an attitude like that on the poor as a Christian, because you mock the charity of Jesus, right? You mock the vow of poverty. It's funny, Jesus was Mr. Charity, but also Jesus chose to have nothing. And he was doing a ministry that he wasn't getting paid for. He was just, I guess he just did his own fishing and did his ministry when he wasn't fishing or something. But that's kind of like the thing, right? It's just like some people, they want to put themselves through certain radical transformations, and so they're very interested in doing that, right? And then this is where Christians they'll offload their guilt about not taking the vow of poverty, every day. God, I'm so sorry, but I just can't part with the second car, God. My wife needs that car. It's much better if we both have our own cars, and that each of our kids have a car. And that everybody has their own room, right? Which is completely different than how things are in, a lot of South America, where everything is, you live with your goddamn brother and your sister and your aunts and your cousins and shit, and it's like, it's overkill. It's like the family, every day is the family reunion in the Latino world, right? In the Latino world is so much more fun. I'm not making fun. I am actually elevating that. I really am. But I am saying that it's also rough, because it's hard for someone to develop individuation process being raised like that, because their identity is going to grow in a very, very strong collective identity. But that is of no problem for Christians either way, because now you've got, because now, it's like your family's all Christians. It's like living in that church under the moral code of God, right? And it's a sheltered life, and you end up being ignorant of the world because you're not in it. You don't have a first-hand experience of sin, right? And that can take your voice away, right? And then you defer to someone who put their voice out there. Once again, Charlie Kirk, right? Because, Charlie Kirk was an activist. That's what conservative activism looks like. It's like that. It's extraordinarily well behaved, but extraordinarily relentless within all of the rules. It's a right-hand path thing. It's a manner of right-hand path power. So anyway, it is understandable, therefore, to look at the social change. Once the American Revolution was done with, we can find very little besides the right of revolution that is laid down in the Declaration of Independence as a fundamental right 70 years later. All right, so the Declaration of Independence is not law, right? And I think we all know how the Declaration of Independence went down. Most of us just know the preamble sentiment. Then there's the list of grievances, which doesn't quite fit on a bumper sticker, the specific grievances that King Charles was imposing upon the colonies. All societies discourage and penalize ideas and writing that... I'm sorry. I have cited very well. Okay, so... As a fundamental right, 73 years later, Thoreau's brief essay on the duty of civil disobedience, followed by Lincoln's reaffirmation of the revolutionary right in 1861. Okay. Good one. All right, let's ask about that. Let's ask about that. All right, what am I looking for? What am I working on? All right. What was Lincoln's reaffirmation of the revolutionary right in 1861? Yes. Lincoln's reaffirmation right in 1861 refers to his recognition in his first inaugural address, March 4th, 1861, of the principle asserted in the American Revolution that people have the right to change or overthrow their government if it becomes intolerable. Yes, which had just happened through civil process and procedure as the Republican Party was having its very first presidential success. Here's the context. Southern states were seceding, claiming they were exercising the same natural right of revolution that the colonists used against Britain. Lincoln firmly denied that secession was a constitutional right, but he did not firmly denied that secession was a constitutional right. But he did not deny the broader revolutionary right. Instead, he carefully distinguished between legal secession, which he said was unconstitutional, and extra-legal revolution, which is acknowledged as a natural right, but only justified in case of real oppression. What? That's what Lincoln said. Think about what Lincoln is saying here. Lincoln is basically saying, like, it is more legal to have the Civil War is more legal than to not have it. That's what he literally just said. That the South doesn't have a right to secede, but they do have a right to fight other states. That's what Lincoln literally just said. So Lincoln actually ordained the Civil War right fucking there. Isn't that ironic? In his words, this country, with its institutions, belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whenever they shall grow weary of the existing government, they can exercise their constitutional right of amending it, or their revolutionary right to dismember or overthrow it. So, Lincoln's reaffirmation was that the people always retain the revolutionary right of overthrowing government, just as in 1776. Right, okay, but insisted that the South had no adequate justification for invoking that right, since the government had not oppressed them. Huh. Really? Okay. What did the Confederacy claim was the Union's oppression on them? Oh, great question, it says. Gotta love it when it starts kissing my ass. All right. The Confederacy did try to frame its secession as resistance to oppression, but when you examine their own words, declaration of secession, speeches, and documents like Alexander Stephens' cornerstone speech, the oppression they claimed came down almost entirely to threats against slavery and Southern political power. Right, okay. Threat to slavery expansion. All right, I understand that issue. So northern hostility towards slavery, loss of political power, moral delegitimization of slavery, Evidence from their own words, explicit sin, or right? Okay, so yeah, no, none of that. Yeah, no, definitely none of that is oppression at all. However, I just want to remind you that in this place, I like to ruin my credibility by reminding you that I believe in theories of antiquitech. And I hate using terms like Tartaria and Mudflood, but I'm just using them as reference points to let you know that I consider the facts within that incredible research that these guys in those fields are doing. Anyway. There are many phrases. Actually, give me 1 second. How far to the end of this chapter? Still got a ways to go. Yes? Yeah, I think it ends right there. Okay, I can justify another music break with this much reading to do. Excellent. Alright, guys, let me pick the next cool song. Maybe. Okay, we're going to do Rise Against with the Violence.
Dancing on the crumbling precipice, the rocks are coming loose to step the earth. Are we laughing? Are we crying? Are we drowning? Are we dead? Or is it all a dream? The bombs are getting closer every day. That can never happen here. We used to say happy forecast to our doorstep. Has this moment finally come? Or is it all a dream? Are we not good enough? Are we not brave enough? Is the violence in our nature just the image of our maker? Are we not good enough? Are we not brave enough? To think of something greater than our violence in our nature? Are we not good enough? Or is it all a dream? To a greater time and fate are we condemned? Or maybe we're a book without an end. We're not stories, we're not actors. We're awake and in control, and this is not a dream. So can we break this mold and set in motion something new? Forgetting what we know, an evolution overdue. Fight the current, go the ripcord, get away. Are we not good enough? Are we not brave enough? Is the violence in our nature just the image of our maker? Are we not good enough? Are we not brave enough to think of something greater than our violence in our nature? Are we not good enough? We'll try to pass the road we take. We need a song, let's pray for rain now. To wash these roads away. Let's get off track and wander far. Same roads lead to same destinations. Follow nothing but your heart. We're talking in our sleep and sleeping through our lives. And we dream of the places where we never die. We step from the shadows and into the light. Are we not good enough? Are we not brave enough? Is the violence in our nature just the image of our maker? Are we not good enough? Are we not brave enough to think of something greater than our violence
having a fucking great show. How you guys doing? Welcome back. All right. There are many phrases extolling the sacredness of revolution, that is, revolution of the past. Our enthusiasm for the sacred rite of revolution is increased and enhanced with passage of time. The older the revolution, the more it recedes into history, the more sacred it becomes. Except for Thoreau's limited remarks, our society has given us few words of advice, few suggestions of how to fertilize social change. From the haves, on the other hand, there has come an unceasing flood of literature justifying the status quo. Religious, economic, social, political, and legal tracts endlessly attack all revolutionary ideas and actions for change as immoral, fallacious, and against God, country, and mother. These literary sedations by the status quo include the threat that since all such movements are unpatriotic, subversive, spawned in hell, and reptilian in their creeping insidiousness, dire punishments will be meted out to their supporters. It says here in the annotation, Lincoln's first inaugural, "This country with its institutions belongs to the people who inhabit it. Whether they shall grow weary of existing government, they can exercise." Yeah, all right. So there's the same quote from ChatGPT. So all's well. All great revolutions, including Christianity, the various reformations, democracy, capitalism, and socialism, have suffered these epithets in the times of their birth. To the status quo, concerned about its public image, revolution is the only force which has no image, but instead casts a dark, ominous shadow of things to come. Right. Now, also remind you, the reason why you end up having to make revolutions in this way. Remember, the Chicago 7 example is a small group of people there to affect a very specific group of people, right? So the question is, because remember, he's using Civil War context. It's just like, does this book bring you to the imagination of guns, of using guns in your strategy? How much violence is implied? Right? Right now, he's still in the process of setting up the cards, right? He hasn't fully, he's just making the argument for the strategies that are to come in the next chapter and continuing forward as such. Okay? So, and the question is, he's made a few generalities about grievances, about things about the cost of living. He's got the Job complex of the God damn it, now my life is like a slave grind. And now, if you're not in the interest of the business class or the working class, you are doing things in one of the more abstract avenues of the economy. And so, Saul Alinsky's doing writing and shit, right? And he's obviously not a businessman, per se. even if he may know how to run a business. Or at least knows how to legally hold one and keep it financially solvent, whether it's, quote, running or not. Which is anybody would do if they need a company as a front organization to finance their hidden agendas. So here they can read about tactics, maneuvers, strategy, and principles of action in the making of revolutions. Since it is the literature, all ideas are embedded in the language of communism. Revolution appears synonymous with communism. When, in the throes of their revolutionary fervor, the have-nots hungrily turn to us, and their first steps from starvation to subsistence, we respond with a bewildering, unbelievable, and meaningless conglomeration of abstractions about freedom, morality, equality, and the danger of intellectual enslavement by communistic ideology. This is accompanied by charitable handouts dressed up in ribbons of moral principle and freedom, with the price tag of unqualified political loyalty to us. Right, so that's all understandable. We've all been talking about how, look at this communist bullshit they're trying to put us in here. Look at this communist bullshit over here, right? You know, when the pandemic, when they did the pandemic emergency economic measures, emergency fucking work procedures, you know, everybody, especially on the right, was understanding that this was a communist answer to a fucking problem, and they was doing it on the states in an organized manner against, you know, on their own from Washington, D.C., which was kind of funny because it was like a backhanded reinvigoration of the 10th Amendment. America's COVID policies was a 10th Amendment affair. You had a federal government that nobody wanted to listen to because Donald Trump and a bunch of other retards and other awful peoples that all were in that institution, and some people still had faith in it, but so many others, at the very least, as far as personal affairs are concerned, states did their own thing, their own way. And we had 50 different ways in which we related to each other. But then again, that is what the states are for. 50 different ways to relate to each other. Things are different between people in Connecticut versus between people in New York, and between a Connecticut person and a New York person. Right? Not that different. It's not a terribly noticeable difference. But with the pandemic, it was, as every little increment of the idea of, you know, the threat of your business or the legitimate threat of I'm afraid of the virus, and it was all fucking madness, right? It was all a fucking free-for-all that felt like there was no fucking existence of any common ground between anybody. So anyway, with the coming of the revolution in Russia and China, we suddenly underwent a moral conversion and became concerned for the welfare of our brothers all over the world. Revolution by the have-nots was a way of inducing a moral revolution among the haves. Ah, yes, and we are in that now. We are in the throes of this moral revolution. It doesn't bother me so much, despite my many liberal values, because the new liberals aren't paying attention to the liberal values that have been preserved. I mean, I don't know about you, but most Gen Xers I know are way happier with how life works right now than most of the other generations. The boomers aren't even paying attention to how much better things typically are. You know, the Gen Xers like me that have been struggling horrendously are finally doing better. The millennials, some of them get it. Most of them, like, I don't know, there's a lot of narcissistic millennials are fucking nasty. nasty fucking people when on this level, right? And Gen Z has nothing to compare anything to because they're the new kids on the block. So anyway. But anyway, we're in this moral revolution now. Now, you can sit there and act like you're going to have way more rights and privileges taken away than you actually are. Or you can fucking participate in an intelligent fashion for that preservation of those rights instead of fucking beating your chest and shouting like a mongoloid. Alright? Revolution by the have-nots also induces a paranoid fear. Now, therefore, we find every corrupt and repressive government the world around saying to us, give us money and soldiers or there will be a revolution and the new leaders will be your enemies. So let me also say right here, this didn't happen, right? Not at one point did the have-nots put fear into the haves, because the haves built the life of their choosing, and they chose to live a good man's life. Like, they had no personal enemies. You can hate them because they're a big influence on holding the line of the conservative values that you're against, but ask yourself this: exactly what conservative values are specifically doing what to you, and have you not just studied the value from your point of view, but studied it from theirs? This is the problem with why, people are fucking black and white on the left about Kirk, right? It's a Kirk derangement syndrome, right? It's all just conservative derangement syndrome. You could call it Christian derangement syndrome, right? You can call it all sorts of derangement syndromes. Or we could just stop calling it a syndrome, stop calling it mental illness, and realize that we still have to step up with our voice in our own right. And there needs to be somebody defending principles from from a secular, completely secular point of view, right? This is why I like what I am doing. As a pagan, I try to do these things secularly, and I believe I succeed at that extraordinarily well. If you think that I don't, please let me know, because I'm hard pressed when it comes to how I say the government ought to be, if it's going to insist on existing. Usually they don't disagree with me about those things, right? So the pagans need to realize they got some weird... the Christians need to realize they do have some weird fucking friends. If, as Christians, they are not, shit human beings that think they're allowed to be like that because they get forgiveness every fucking week. Right? It's, it's just like, you got, you keep yourself tied into it. You're in a circle, and you're probably doing better every single day, right? But it's you go into the shelter of it, right? You want to be away from the temptations, so on and so forth. And there's no greater temptation than the temptation of widespread acceptance about the whole party putting a smile on your face. That's a temptation. That's a greater sin. That's a greater sin than wrath, which isn't a sin, right? You know, that could be the worst of these transgressions, is the, is the betrayal of the self in that manner, right? you know, and because I'm not a Christian, I'm also, I don't have guilt about my choices of when I am selfish. I am not selfish, but I am not selfless. I have the authority and the autonomy and the judgment to choose when I give to myself and when I give to others. All in balance. All right. Where was I? Just paranoid fear, right? Give us money and soldiers, or there will be a revolution and the new leaders will be your enemies. Fearful of revolution and identifying ourselves as the status quo, we have permitted the communists to assume by default the revolutionary halo of justice for the have-nots. We then compound this mistake by assuming that the status quo everywhere must be defended and buttressed against revolution. Today, revolution has become synonymous with communism, while capitalism is synonymous with status quo. Occasionally, we will accept a revolution if it is guaranteed to be on our side. The economic model has nothing to do with, with you being a have or a have-not. Right? It really doesn't. I mean, because you may personally become a have, but then there will be new have-nots, right? Because he's writing this book, I think, in the 70s or something. It may not be clear at that time how much communism is not going to be a valid idea, how it's not going to work, how it's going to fall insolvent within 20 years. Occasionally, we will accept a revolution if it is guaranteed to be on our side, and then only when we realize that the revolution is inevitable, we abhor revolutions. We have permitted a suicidal situation to unfold wherein revolution and communism have become one. Hey, what's up, Penguin? These pages are committed to splitting this political atom, separating this exclusive identification of communism with revolution. If it were possible for the have-nots of the world to recognize and accept the idea that revolution did not inevitably mean hate and war, cold or hot, from the United States, that alone would be a great revolution in world politics and the future of man. This is a major reason for my attempt to provide a revolutionary handbook, not cast in a communist or capitalist mold, but as a manual for the have-nots of the world, regardless of the color of their skins. Right? So you've got that particular ideological claim, which, hey, look, can't be against that. It's, that's an equal opportunity situation. I mean, like, it's if it's not communism, it's certainly a very, very discriminatory distribution system. Yeah, everything's good, Penguin. Thank you. Okay, color of their skins or their politics. Excuse me. So, right. So my aim here is to suggest how to organize for power, how to get it and to use it. I will argue that the failure to use power for a more equitable distribution of the means of life for all people signals the end of the revolution and the start of the counter-revolution. Right? It's all about, it's just, we want a new economic model. Right? We want a new economic model. That's what he's saying. Revolution has always advanced with an ideological spear, just as the status quo has inscribed its ideology upon its shield. All of life is partisan. There is no dispassionate objectivity. The revolutionary ideology is not confined to a specific limited formula. It is a series of general principles rooted in Lincoln's May 19, 1856 statement, "Be not deceived, revolutions do not go backward." Okay. And then it goes into the ideology of change. Okay, so once again, I'm going to do one more time ChatGPT about this. Okay. Okay, a series of general principles rooted in Lincoln's May 19th, 1856. What was Abraham Lincoln's May 19th, 1856 statement, "Be not deceived, revolutions do not go backward"? All right. Gave a speech in Bloomington, Illinois, that's his home state, at the founding convention of the Illinois Republican Party. Okay, so this was like keynote speaker kind of thing. This speech, often called the Lost Speech, became because reporters were so enthralled they stopped taking notes, helped solidify Lincoln as a leading anti-slavery voice. One of the lines attributed to him is, "Be not deceived, revolutions do not go backward." Lincoln was referring to the anti-slavery movement and the struggle over the extension of slavery into the new U.S. territories. He was warning that once a moral and political revolution begins, such as the fight against slavery, it cannot be reversed. He saw the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which repealed the Missouri Compromise, as an attempt to drag the country backwards by reopening slavery expansion. I believe that was the bleed. Was that the bleeding of Kansas? That might have been the bleeding of Kansas, which was a pretty brutal event in the 19th century. I think it was Kansas, right? The nation was in the middle of a revolution over slavery, attempts to expand slavery into freedom territories, right? Okay. All right. Let's see here. What was bleeding? I think it was Kansas. I'm going to say Kansas and see if I get the right answer. The period of violent conflict in the Kansas territories. Yes, between 1854 and 59. I think I was right. Centered on the issue of whether Kansas would enter the Union as a free or slave state. It was a key prelude to the American Civil War. The Kansas-Nebraska Act. Yes, so I was right. Yes, so this was that's in reference to the bleeding of Kansas. So that's some serious shit right there. That's some real serious shit. All right. But that's the book. All right. I think we're going to call it. Not sure if I'm going to pop on tomorrow. Tomorrow I've got a couple of errands to run, and then it's a work night. I've ordered myself a professional massage by a doctor. In like kind of like a massage clinic kind of office, not like a parlor. This isn't like a day spa thing, right? I ordered a whole hour-long session for this massage with a guy because I didn't want some gentle lady's hands like failing to freaking like get into the deep tissue of my muscles, because I am trying to work on this fucking nerve chain problem, which causes my fingertips to go a little numb if I get tense in the arms for too long, right? Or if I'm laying on a portion of my back or my side of my arm, I get a tremendous amount of cutoff of circulation that seems unusual and a little bit different than what I'm used to, which I think has everything to do with how my physique has changed a bit. And sometimes I still wonder if I've done enough because I feel like I need bigger arms anyway, and a bigger shoulder, and more back definition, right? But anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Probably Thursday will be the next show, unless for some reason I'm really feeling it and I got just enough time when I get home. We'll see.